Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In the year of our Lord 2025, it has come to the attention of most in the financial world of something that we at Tony Walker Financial have known for years, and that is the huge wave of baby boomers, known by some as the silver tsunami, today retiring in droves. In fact, as of the date of this recording on January 21st, 2025, it is estimated that over 11,000 baby boomers are turning 65 each and every day. Now that's a lot of boomers who the financial world are going to invite to dinner. Yet while thousands of savers are approaching retirement, the question I hear most often from the hundreds of savers I meet each year is, when can I retire? Which today, we're about to answer that question. Well, welcome folks to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we share with you when to retire, let me introduce two young lads in the WorryFree studios who better not think of retiring anytime soon. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's imagine you are watching this show and you are one of the thousands of baby boomers who are thinking of pulling the ripcord on work and retiring. When should you retire? And more specifically, is there a time of the year that might be best suited for you and your specific situation at work? You see, like most things in life, timing is everything. And so to time out and factor in when to retire is a key to calling it quits for retirement. Which is why today I'm going to take a deep dive into things you will need to consider during the year and which dates might be best suited for your specific situation, as well as what I've learned from other retirees who might have wished they'd picked a different date. So stay tuned as I cover the best time to retire on today's program of the WorryFree Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Trey Juergens, full-time fiduciary here in the Louisville office. Coming up with today's show topic, actually it was just a funny observation we've made with several of our retirees actually retiring on April 1st. Kind of got a kick out of the whole idea of someone working 30, 40 years for their boss only to tell them they're retiring on April Fool's Day. So it's just fascinating, someone working their entire career to actually have to come down to one specific day to retire on. Hope you enjoy today's show.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement, and it's interesting that while we at Tony Walker Financial assist retirees or those looking to retire soon with their money, and of course when to retire in terms of a particular year, sometimes that question of when to retire falls into something called the certain time of year. It's something people don't think about all the time, and that is this: when during the year is it most advantageous to retire? We've broken this down into 5 different phases as to when someone might want to retire at any point, and let's start with those. First of all, there's what we call the end of the year. We might say December 31st. This is when you might have a full year's salary, you can maximize your income for the year, might include any year-end bonuses or raises that the employer is going to give you, contributions to your 401k or pension. Again, sometimes it is best for people to actually retire in December 31st, being at the end of the year. In addition, at the end of the year, pension and Social Security benefits can sometimes start at the first of the year following the end of the year, making it easier to think through planning and cash flow needs as well. Number 2, we call this the end of the month or quarter so that there's no income gap. In fact, most pensions and Social Security payments sometimes will begin at the start of the following month, minimizing any interruption in income. Employer health benefits. Sometimes employer-sponsored health plans go through the end of a month. So again, sometimes it's best to pick a particular month, retire at the end of the month, and retire at what we call the end of a quarter. Transversely, beginning of the month allows for the potential of keeping health insurance benefits through another month prior to maybe starting Medicare. Then we have phase 3, which is mid-year retirement. In many cases, there may be a lower tax bracket issue because maybe you're only accepting income through June 30th, for instance. The total income can be then spread out over all calendar years, potentially lowering your tax bracket for the year you retire and then even the following year following retirement. That's a time where we can set up systematic withdrawals, which is what we do for our retirees at Tony Walker Financial. There's the flexibility of personal plans. You also sometimes can avoid the year-end rush when everybody else is trying to retire so that you can retire during a period of time also when weather tends to be a little better. In fact, I just had a gentleman that just retired as we record this show in January just a few weeks ago, and he dropped by and he said, "Tony, I'm about to go crazy. The weather's awful. I can't get out and do anything." He said, "This was a terrible time to retire." If that is the case for you, let's say you retire in the middle of winter, you might want to schedule ahead a time to take a trip to some warmer weather just to enjoy yourself and again, usher in retirement on a positive winter weather note, if you know what I'm talking about. Phase number 4 is what we call the after-work anniversary. For instance, let's say you started it with your employer on September 15th. Well, that could be a milestone for things like pension credits. Sometimes bonuses are based on years of service. So in order to maximize your years of service, sometimes you might retire in the anniversary of the year you started with your employer. Then we get to number 5. Boy, this is a doozy. We call this government milestones. Now, for whatever reason, politicians love to grab these arbitrary ages, so let's go over a few that are very, very important and make sure you're working with a retirement planner that understands the complexities and the importance and the ramifications of these various ages. We've got the first age, which is 59 and a half. That's when you can take penalty-free withdrawals from that tax-infested 401k or IRA of yours. Also 59 and a half is an age that you can sometimes go ahead and roll that 401k over to someone like Tony Walker Financial and still be working with your employer. The next age is age 62. That's the earliest you can claim Social Security benefits. The next major milestone is age 65. That's when you're eligible for Medicare and possibly even a Medicare supplement. The next milestone, age 66 or 67, now that's called your full retirement age. This depends on your date of birth, but that's the age that you can draw full Social Security and you can work and make as much money as you want anywhere else without it being offset. And then the final age that really throws people off is age 70. That's the age of Social Security when that's the latest you can delay Social Security. Oh, by the way, I know we don't have it up there, but I was just thinking another magical age is age 73. That's the age called the required minimum distribution that you must draw money out of that tax-infested IRA or 401k, which we can help with that as well. So maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're thinking about retirement. You haven't really chosen a date, but you need to start planning for that date. Why don't you do this right now? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. Let's talk by phone with something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And of course, as always, if the internet's not your thing, give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, when we return, let's imagine you're thinking about working with Tony Walker Financial. You and I have met in person, but what happens when you decide to roll over that 401k over to us? Well, we've got some special guests coming in the studio. You stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. You know, Heather, I think back to 2006. Is that when you started? Okay, I think I hired you for like tax planning. Was that your title then? Something like that.
It was financial research coordinator, I think. It took me a minute to think of that.
Well, I've been in the business so long up until then, and I understood the need for tax planning, but we really didn't have any strategic plans. We didn't have a department. Speak to, as we fast forward now to 2024, our tax planning department and the role they play behind the scenes. I don't think people realize how much work they do, but the importance of the role they play behind the scenes at no additional charge. We don't charge for these services, but for our clients of Tony Walker Financial.
Right. I think you originally hired me, like you said, for essentially some tax planning. I had a background in accounting. Right now, our tax planning department consists of TJ Reagan and Leanne Tinsley. And there's so many tax issues in retirement. I think people are just like, oh, you pay your taxes. But it does change with retirement in between required minimum distributions, possible Roth conversions, legacy planning, estate planning. There are so many issues that are involved in your retirement as far as taxes go. And to have two full-time people on staff that can answer those questions, and they work, as you mentioned, they work behind the scenes. There's a lot of tax planning inside the plans that we present to potential clients. They may not see that initially, but it's in there. And because we're trying to be proactive as much as we can on tax issues that may come their way.
And then also, I think what a lot of people don't realize, I had some clients, prospective clients yesterday, they're moving forward. And the lady, she was so funny. She said, so make sure I understand this. Really what you're going to be doing is taking over the paycheck we were getting. You're taking all the taxes out and all that. So speak to our tax planning department too, how we hone in. Not only are we just going to send them money so they can continue to enjoy retirement, we're also doing all the calculations, the withholdings, all that. How does that process work?
Yes, so that's one of the things we do even look at when we're preparing a plan. Especially TJ, he does look at what we're projecting income to be. And then based on current tax brackets, of course, we can try to guess at future, but good luck. But then we look at those tax brackets that they will be currently in given projected income. And also that will factor in if we're looking at Roth conversions, trying to stay within their current tax bracket and things of that nature. So it's a great service to have, and not every advisor has that ability to do that.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Hi, this is Lisa here at Tony Walker Financial with a common Social Security question. If you are not yet full retirement age, plan to retire and begin your Social Security benefits mid-year, will your earnings that year affect your Social Security benefit? If you begin your Social Security benefit prior to full retirement age, normally you will be subject to the annual earnings test limit of $23,400. However, in your first year of retirement, for example, if you do retire mid-year and begin your Social Security benefit at that time, you can use the annual earnings test or the monthly earnings test, whichever is to your advantage. For the monthly earnings test, in the year that you retire, you can earn any amount prior to the month you begin your benefit, as long as you earn less than the monthly limit of $1,950 in each individual month after beginning your benefit and through the end of the calendar year. Your benefit amount will not be affected.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Our theme today is when to retire, and specifically a time of year to do that. So we're going to role play a little bit. With us in the studios is three of our amigos that handle all the service aspects when somebody decides to retire and move their assets over to Tony Walker Financial. So we have Juanita Jackson to my left, Mr. Craig Davis, and Beth Wisman. So thank you for joining us. All right, we'll start with you, Beth. Let's say I've met with somebody and they're like, yes, I love this plan. I want to roll over our 401k to Tony Walker Financial. Usually I have you involved in the process at the very beginning. Tell us those first steps.
So the first step is that either they will onboard in the office or I will give them a call. We will gather all their information, their name, address, beneficiary information, any documentation that we may need as far as statements, voided checks, driver's license, get that information so that the Charles Schwab and the annuity departments know what assets are coming over and how to get those transferred in.
And tell us briefly, why is it so important to have full statements up front as best we can before we start transferring assets?
That way we can make sure we have exactly who the owner is, what the assets are, and make sure it's an in-kind transfer so that everything goes smoothly from the start.
So now you've collected all the basic data. Then we kind of turn it over to Juanita. Juanita, explain your role in the process at this point.
So once Beth has onboarded and gotten that information to us, I'm taking a look at the income plan to evaluate it for the types of assets that we're going to be receiving. It might be pre-tax, after-tax, non-qualified, and she's determining whether we have the statements, and I'm letting her know if we have what we need because we're trying to assess those to determine if there are any trade fees. We want to do the most cost-effective thing for the client, and it's not cookie cutter. Each one is different. They have their unique plan. And so we're taking a look at that, generating the list of documents. I usually already know how they'd like to sign or more comfortable signing, whether they'll be coming in or signing electronically, and then we'll generate those for signature. And if they're in person, we'll also be including a security document with some personal questions because it's very important to us to verify their identity when they call in to discuss their account. So we'll have that on file, and once they sign the documents and we've determined what types of assets we're receiving, it's probably going to get turned over to Craig for a rollover.
Very good. So yeah, Craig, so let's say we go through those steps. Now they're ready for that rollover call. Explain how that works, any apprehension they might have or concerns when you do a rollover call as well.
The apprehension, normally people say, well, maybe they're out, they're at work, or hey, even sometimes in the car. They say, I don't have statements, and I say, generally, everything we need, we already have here. The things you need at this point are just going to be things you already know. They're going to maybe ask you some security questions or send a text code to your telephone. So those kinds of things. Another thing, they'll sometimes one spouse or the other tends to handle more of the finances, and so maybe the husband will say, well, my wife's handling all of that. Give her a call. But we have to have the account holder on the line while we're making that call, and they have to stay on the whole time.
Okay. And so let's say all that goes successful as planned, and they get ready to send a check. The check, usually they bring it by the office or whatever, the paper check. It's rollover and made payable to Charles Schwab in that example. What do you do with that check, Juanita?
So once we receive either a check or possibly a transfer of incoming assets and I'm notified, we track those daily to make sure that they're on track and nothing's gone wrong. Once we receive those, they're going to hear from Shannon in our trading department. She's going to call and confirm the details of the transaction with them, confirm once again the investment strategy they selected to make sure they haven't changed their mind or don't need to talk to a fiduciary. And then at that point, if there were any assets in the income plan that are going to an annuity, she'll notify that department that they are prepared to go.
And I am so confident in your all's work, and you do such a great job. We appreciate it so much. So, again, thank you for all you do. And, folks, if you have a 401k you'd like to roll over, we're well equipped and ready to handle that. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Our client spotlight features today Larry and Elaine Mitchum. And Larry and Elaine, it's been so good to have you with us, and thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure always to come out and meet with you, Tony. We've enjoyed the relationship over the last several years, without a doubt.
Well, let's go back to that. So first of all, tell me what you did for a living.
I was a pesky insurance man. I was in it for about 40 years, but dealt primarily with property liability and workers' comp for public entities. And the majority of our business for me was working with boards of educations, but also city and county governments and political subdivisions, water district health departments, and traveled throughout Kentucky for about 35 years before I get to that point.
And Elaine, you did not work outside the household, correct?
Well, I worked when I was younger, but then when we met, I didn't have to work because he made all the money. So that was good, and it helps. It helped us be with the grandkids more, and do what we wanted to do at church and all those things. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, remind me, how did you find out about Tony Walker Financial?
Well, I tell you what, we didn't really have an interest, but when we got to that point where we saw the light at the end of the tunnel of getting to a point of considering retirement, first of all, was a blessing, and boy, did those years go fast before they got there. And then it's like, okay, hey, we're really going to have to start looking at what we want to do because, like I said, we had been blessed, and I've seen a couple commercials on TV with that. And then I think we had just talked to Elaine and I, let's watch one of his episodes that he has, one of his shows. And so we did that. And then we were always touched and encouraged by your openness of expressing your faith. Because we gave our life to Jesus and God years ago. And I have always had that saying, I'm walking, living proof that the good Lord takes care of those that can't take care of themselves.
for sure.
And then he said to submit in all things. So this was one that we prayed about. And even though we had been working with somebody else and generating our retirement savings, I had just seen him show up in ways where he has tried to direct us and give us a message of maybe that. And just after watching your shows, Elaine and I talked about, let's just at least go out and listen to what he has to say. And that's when we called to schedule an appointment to come out and visit with you, just to hear, your philosophy. And I loved your ideas for live well and die broke. Maybe I'm trying to follow your advice in that one right there. I promise you that.
So, Mitchum's, one of the things that's exciting, since you've retired, you're not really retiring, you've just taken on a separate vocation. Tell us a little bit about the ministry.
I took quite a few lefts in the game of life. Been clean from drugs now for about 35 years and alcohol about 15 years. And being members of Fairdale Christian Church, another guy had started to Celebrate Recovery. And it's just it's a substance abuse program, not just substance abuse, but dealing with hurts, habits, and hang-ups of individuals that are struggling with life challenges. And it's a faith-based program for recovery to deal with those so that you can face them and get on with a life and facing challenges. And as we have a saying, plaque above our deck out there is that life's not about waiting for the storm to pass, it's learning to dance in the rain. That we've understood through his word, we're going to face trials and tribulations, but we do have a choice in how we respond to those trials.
And I got to ask you, Elaine, now that you've been a client, you and your husband, of Tony Walker Financial, how would you surmise your experience, not only just getting to meet me and getting a game plan, but working more specifically with the staff here?
I think they've been wonderful. I mean, we can call anytime, and they're always, they always get back with us right away if they can't at that time. And that's important. That's real important to us to do that, to be able to know that we can call at any time and they're right there for us. And it's been wonderful.
I think it's been beneficial for us, too, not just the professionalism, but the attitude from which they deal with. And like I said, we can feel the joy out here without a doubt.
Yeah.
We talk about the joy that transcends all understanding. And just to partner with those, like I said, it makes it worthwhile.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. And of course, it's joyful to work with clients like you too. So congratulations on your retirement and also your continued passion for other people. Yeah. So we appreciate your business.
We're having the time of our life.
Yeah, we are.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
More than 20 years ago, I authored my first of 6 books called Perfecting Your Walk in Retirement with the subtitle 10 Steps to a Worry-Free Retirement. Sounds easy enough, yet as I continue to watch the lives of thousands of savers play out in retirement, this notion of perfecting anything here on earth, yes, Even one's retirement is impossible at best. Which is why at Tony Walker Financial, we recently took the advice of Harry Beckwith and decided to ditch the idea of trying to be perfect and instead make very good good enough.
Heavy.
This departure from the pressure of trying to be perfect now allows our staff to pursue with even more confidence our work in helping our clients be worry-free by keeping things simple and always keeping the line of communication between them and us very good. This vain endeavor of thinking we're perfect sure didn't keep the Apostle Paul from trying to pursue perfection, where in Philippians 3:12 he says the following, "Not that I have already obtained all this or have already been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me." While a wonderful mark to pursue, this constant pursuit of perfection often creates a weight that no man was meant to bear, but instead shift that vision of perfection here on earth to the perfection that awaits us in heaven. Charles Spurgeon sums it up best when he shares his take on Hebrews 4:9, where he says, "Here on earth rest is partial. There, in heaven, it is perfect." Here, the Christian is always unsettled. He feels that he has not yet attained. There, all are at rest. They have attained the summit of the mountains. They have ascended to the bosom of their God. Higher they cannot go. Armed with God's Holy Spirit, we see a glimpse of this perfection described again by Paul in 1 Corinthians 3:12, where he says, "Now we see but a dim reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Translation, according to Tony, once we arrive in heaven, we shall witness and be transformed in the perfection that God has already seen us through Christ in the first place. So, Christian, I know things here on earth are tough and unpredictable at best. Yes, even in retirement. But that does not mean you have to worry about it. Accept the fact that we are imperfect people living in an imperfect world. But one day, and maybe sooner than you think, our perfect God will greet us on the shores of heaven to where we will live and enjoy perfection forever. Amen? Well, speaking of being greeted on the shores of heaven one day, I've got a question for those of you who are still worried about retirement. Who in the world is here to greet you now that you can trust somebody with your money? Do you have someone who is equipped to deal with all the issues and complexities that come along with not only investing your money in retirement, but saving on taxes and enjoying the money before it's too late? And also has the knowledge to put in place a written game plan that you and your loved ones can follow all the way through retirement. Well, if you're looking for a worry-free retirement, let's talk. And we've made this so easy to do for you and I to talk. We call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's all you do. Just log on to the TonyWalkerFinancial.com website. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and click on that Let's Get Started button, where we will arrange a phone call. That's right, you and I, the owner of the company, to talk for a few minutes about your situation. And if it warrants, we'll be happy to meet with you in person. Internet not your thing? Feel free to call us 24/7 at this number, 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But if all else fails, you remember, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.